All right, so I just told Treese that like we have to hit record right now because this is going to be just this. I told her before we hit record, this could possibly be the most shared podcast I've ever done. I've been thinking about this podcast for like 2 weeks because I know it's going to push me to say some things that I've probably never said before. It's definitely going to push you to do the exact same thing. And every single human being who listens to this podcast, who I am asking you as a human being who cares about another human being, please share this with someone because you are going to know someone who resonates with everything we're talking about. And so grateful that you said yes to doing this.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful for the opportunity. Thank you for having me.
Girl, I feel like you and I were just talking about like, obviously, if you don't know Treese, I'll let her introduce herself in a second. She's been a client of mine for a long time. And I was telling her when I was reading her intake form for this podcast, I was like, girl, you need to reread this intake form. I'm like, this is the shit that like gets people to throw credit cards at you because this is the shit that everyone on the planet is dealing with. And the way that you articulated it in your form and the passion that you have because of your journey and because of your life and your story is what is really going to grip people. So, um, introduce yourself not as your bio, but introduce yourself as who you are because who you are is like, I'm just so excited for this.
So it's fun. I've been thinking, I'm like, this is going to be the question, right? Of like, who are you? Right. And it's like, how do I answer this? Because there's so many things that make me who I am. The way that am to where I am today is I am a recovering addict. I have 7 years clean. I made the decision 7 years ago to get out of my own way and to get some help, and fell completely in love with the self-development and personal self-growth and all of that. Fell in love with that world. I'm a mom. I never ever thought that I would have kids. I didn't think that I was built for it. I didn't think that I deserved it. I didn't think that I had the capacity to love the way that I do. So I am London's mom. She came into my life and she's taught me about unconditional love and just like this sensitive side of me and this nurturing side of me that I didn't know. I'm a wife to my husband Kyle. We have the healthiest relationship I've ever been in because we both do the work, right? Like we both work on ourselves. We both know about our stuff. And then in my other worlds, right, I wear a lot of hats. So I am in the pool and spa industry. I am a sales coordinator for Blythe Sales. We are an independent rep group. We represent different manufacturers in the pool and spa industry. And then my favorite hat is that I am a coach. I help overwhelmed women. I help them get out of their own way. I help them to build their confidence. I help them to set healthy boundaries and to stop people pleasing and to prioritize themselves without feeling guilty about it.
That is the perfect introduction because that's exactly what I wanted you to say because it's so true. It's like what you said in your intake form. You said when you were about, and you guys, this podcast is going to go from everything from like family boundaries to personal development to addiction. We are really going to go in it, and I'll probably put something in the bio when I record it about like, hey, this is going to be a lot, but I think we need to talk about it because I think what you and I were talking about before we hit record is that like, and I'm even, I'm a passionate son of a bitch and I say God and I say fuck. And I'm like, I put my heart out there, but sometimes I actually think I don't go into it enough. I think I could even go into it even more because I do have stronger views than I'm even putting online because I fucking do. I'm just like you. I am so eat up with the fact that like I hate people who have excuses. I can't fucking stand it. I know that you feel the exact same way. Neither one of our lives is perfect. I was never an addict, but I have a family member who is an addict. And I have had, in my personal opinion, I probably was an addict. The fact that I had an eating disorder for 20 years. I mean, it's pretty horrible, to be honest with you. And I think that sometimes you and I have talked about this 100 times where holy fuck, the only thing that's stopping people is that they're just not fucking taking personal responsibility for their life.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to touch back on you
Please.
talking about the eating disorder, me talking about my addiction. I feel like that is so important, right? Is that's what keeps people sick. That's what keep people hid away from everybody, is this shame and this guilt that they have of like, oh, I have something wrong with me, or my family member has something wrong with them. And the more that we talk about this, the more that we see that everybody is touched by some type of mental illness or some type of something that the world has told us that we should feel shameful about. And I just think it's so important to acknowledge that we all struggle. Nobody's life is perfect. Nobody's living a fairy tale. Like everybody's got their stuff, right? Like you're a confidence and success coach, and I'm sure there's days you struggle with your confidence. I coach people on their boundaries and not people pleasing and to prioritize myself. I struggle with setting boundaries sometimes, and I struggle with my addiction sometimes, right? Like it's not, hey, I got this thing and I'm perfect now, right? Like life is constantly about evolving and constantly learning. And I always say different levels, different devils, right? Like it's always going to show up in a different way. And the taking responsibility piece, to go back to your original question, was that was something I really learned through my recovery. Was I'm not responsible for my disease. I'm not responsible for my addiction. I am responsible for my recovery, right? And I am responsible for my life. I'm responsible for how I show up in my life. I'm responsible for saying, oh, hey, that wasn't fair, but guess what? Nobody cares that it's not fair, right? Like I need to, what am I in control of? What can I do to get out of my own way? What is my responsibility in this? And a lot of the times your responsibility is to heal your shit, right? And like that's the thing, right? Is like, I'm this way because this happened to me or that happened to me. Like, yeah, stuff happens to you and it's sad and it's hard, and we all have traumas, big and little, but I am responsible for saying the buck stops here. I'm not going to let this define me. I want to every day be better. I want to be the best mom that I can be. I want to be a great wife, a great friend, a great coach, a great daughter, all of these things. And the only way for me to be better is to work on myself, to heal the things that still hurt, to bring the skeletons out of the closet and say, yeah, that did happen, right? And how do I reparent myself and how do I heal myself?
100%. I was listening to a Gary V. So you guys, Gary V he's going to be a billionaire, I'm sure. He owns pretty much the biggest media company in the world, if you don't realize that. You probably know Gary V. You see his clips online or you listen to his podcasts and stuff like that. But he said something the other day. I was listening to a podcast he was on, and I haven't listened to him in a while. However, I've always liked him because his whole message is gratitude, fucking love your life. I don't care if you're making $50,000 a year or $5 million a year. If you're fucking miserable, it's your own damn fault and you have the power to do whatever the fuck it is. He talks about how easy it is to make money if you actually have a little bit of like grit to you. Like I've just always loved exactly what he said. And he was on a podcast the other day and he was talking about exactly what you and I are talking about, which is you can't come at someone right in the beginning and be like, fucking change your life. And this is the way that, I think you said it to me, and I'm super grateful for it. You're like, you care so much. I'm like, there is no humanly possible way I can't do this job if I don't care so fucking much. Like, zero chance. But in the beginning, I can say it sucks that you had all this stuff happen to you. It sucks that you have to deal with so much of this shit with your parents. And it sucks that you're so traumatized by this. But eventually, I am going to put on my big girl pants and I am going to tell you, you're right. All of that stuff fucking sucks so much, but you're the only person who can change it now. And you know that. And that's exactly what Gary Vee was saying. It's exactly what 99% of most successful people will figure out. And I'm not talking successful just money. I'm talking people who are actually fucking happy with their lives and like content with their lives. Like you just said, you're like, oh my God, I cannot believe that I have created this life in the last 7 years. And that's what you want for your clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that's why coaching is so important. So, I have a sponsor because I'm in a 12-step program. I have a therapist to work through some things. And then coaching, why I love coaching and why I have a coach and why I think it's so important is because it's actionable, it's tangible, it's things that I can do to hold myself accountable. I'm being held accountable. And also, when you're in it, right? Like when I'm in my stuff and I'm in my feels and I'm like, this is never going to work for me and da 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 da, like it's really hard to spot your own bullshit, right? A coach holds up that mirror and is like, That's exactly that. It's bullshit, right? And they hold you accountable and they pull all these things are already inside of us, right? Like we are capable of doing whatever we want to do. It's this protector brain that comes in and tells us fear, 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 stay small, stay there, don't go anywhere. This is comfortable. It might be dis uncomfortable to live in, right? Like this is miserable and I don't feel good, but it's safe because I know what to expect. If I step out of this and I do something different, I don't know what could happen, right? I don't know what happens if I put down my stories of life's not fair and it's never going to work for me and I have mental health issues and that's why everything's so hard for me. If I put that stuff down and stop living behind my excuses, what could happen, right? And it's the fear of the unknown. And that's why it's so important to have somebody in your life, if you don't have it through family members, friends, whatever, to have somebody who's like, I'm here to hold your hand through it all and you're going to be okay, right? And to also show you the proof of you've survived everything that's been thrown at you so far, right? And here's also other examples of people that have gone through it too and look how great their life is. And exactly, I never thought when I got clean I just wanted to stop using drugs. And honestly, I didn't even want to stop using drugs. I wanted to stop being in the pain that I was in from using drugs. I had no idea that I was going to embark on this journey and that it just feels good to be Treese today, right? And I could not say that 7 years ago. I couldn't say that for the 31 years before I got clean. It didn't feel good to be Treese. It just didn't. My brain was a prison. And now today, it's like I hold my head high, I like myself, but I've done a lot of freaking work, like this didn't just happen because I made the decision to get clean. I had to take the action, right?
Okay, let's a yes to all of the fucking things. I'm like literally obsessed, but like let's start back more towards the beginning because I think people sometimes like to put themselves in the story. And you guys, it may not be heroin for you, it may not be an eating disorder for you, but if you're listening to this, you have something. You do. You just have something. There is not one human being on the planet who has escaped every trauma that your parents have given you. And guess what? Your parents were just people who were traumatized themselves. Like every single person comes from something, whether your parents were awesome or fucking monsters. We've all had some sort of wounding that has caused us to feel a certain way in our lives. And we have the ability to do something about it. There is not one of us that is so trapped that we cannot take personal responsibility to make tiny changes. And it is not easy. We're not telling you it's easy, but like you ultimately have the power. So take me back to when you were younger. What was kind of like your family upbringing like? What was your life kind of like? And kind of lead me to the point that you started using.
Sure. So what I do want to touch on too, with you just saying that about the family, I'm somebody that struggles with black and white thinking or all or nothing thinking. And I feel like that is something that really keeps people imprisoned, is feeling like if I acknowledge that my parents maybe didn't raise me to the best way that I could have been raised, or I believe that my parents loved me to the best of their ability. They raised me to the best of their ability. It just maybe wasn't what was right for me as this human being, right? It doesn't diminish the fact that they loved me. It doesn't make them bad parents. It just means that somewhere along the way it just didn't mesh well with my insides, right? And I needed more. I needed different. Is all that it means. And I think that people get afraid. I know I get afraid to acknowledge things that have happened, or how I was brought up, or how my family dynamic works, because I'm afraid that that means that I'm saying that they were bad, and or that it takes away from the beauty of my childhood, or the beauty and the love that was there in my relationships. And that's not what I'm saying at all. It can be
I
both.
feel like so many people, I mean, I completely agree with you. I never want to hurt my mom and dad, who I love so, so much. But I also have to be very honest that a lot of the reasons why I am the way that I am, or that I think the way that I think, is because I was hurt in so many ways. And those ways are not anything like you don't want to hurt your parents. That's my number one goal. I don't want to hurt my parents. I don't want to hurt Nathan's parents, but both of us are hurt people. And I thank God every day that I've taken personal responsibility to improve myself, to change certain things. But ultimately, I think you're giving people right now, Therese, permission to admit that like yeah, their parents screwed them up a little bit. And thank you for saying that because, I kind of dance around the subject because I do not want to hurt my parents. But at the end of the day, I think we're all hurt.
Yes, exactly. And that's the work that I've done, is realizing that the way that my parents raised me came from how their parents raised them, which came from their right. So it's just generational, right? So I'm one of four. I'm the third daughter, and then I have a younger brother. So my parents have their own business. My dad was very much like, he has his own business. He's a worker. He's the worker bee. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. I went through a lot of health things when I was younger. I had Chiari malformation, which means that I had something going on with my brainstem. I had to have major surgery when I was in fourth grade. And I think that there might have emerged my like protector, right? Like this part of me that I was going through this, but I was a little bit too young to understand what was going on. I saw my parents being affected by it, and I had to be strong, right? And I had to maybe protect them, and I think I kind of left myself behind a little bit in doing so, right? And then later on in life, I my appendix ruptured. I was in the hospital forever. Like I was just like this medical kid, like I just had some stuff happen to me. And my family isn't the type that, I wasn't brought up talking about feelings. I wasn't brought up talking about emotions. I wasn't brought up being explained things like, oh, you're having this feeling, Treese. Let's talk about what that means. Like that was never done. And my family very much was the, we're Italian, so like there's like this like loyalty to the family, and we don't air our dirty laundry, and there's a lot of secrets and things like that. So over time, I noticed at a very young age, I think I had my first drink at, I don't know, maybe 13. And I feel like I can still remember that. It was like a fuzzy feeling, and I was like, I like this, right? And from there it just evolved, right? And I grew up in this cute little town in Pennsylvania. It's called Westchester. Like, people do well here. It's a good town to grow up in. And I just went down a road that I never thought that I would go down. If you ever told me when I was 16 years old that I would end up a heroin addict, I would be like, you're insane. Like that's just not, I can't see that happening to me. So typical high school drinking, doing drugs, it just all got introduced in high school. And honestly, high school is probably where the first signs of it really getting out of control for me were, but I just wasn't ready, right? Like family started to find out that I was doing cocaine, things like that. And I was like, okay, gotta like pump the brakes, and because I'm gonna get in trouble, right? And then, went through my 20s, drinking all the time. Like, I went from Thursday till Sunday, just weekend warrior. And then we started doing painkillers because that was the hangover cure. And so we started using those, and then it just kept on getting worse and worse and worse. And yeah, and eventually your drug dealer doesn't have Percocets. So he's like, here, have some heroin to hold you over. And I was like, okay, just this one time, but then I'm going to go back to the pills. I'm not a heroin addict. And you never go back, and my life just spiraled from there, right? Like I owned my own home. I was living with my boyfriend. And we just like stopped paying the bills. All that we did was use our drugs. My family started to realize what was going on. I wasn't really allowed to see my nieces and my nephew. Like they were mad at me, but they didn't really know how to deal with me. And I would do the typical addict thing, right? Where like if you were to come to me and confront me on anything, I'm gonna reverse it on you. I'm gonna say something terrible about you so that you go back and look at yourself in the mirror and are like, oh, do I do that? Am I the problem here? Right? Because that's what addicts do, is we're manipulators. So I'm going to make you stop focusing on me and focus on somebody else. It could be you, or I could make you focus on my siblings. Right. But yeah, so at the end, I started saying to my boyfriend every day, I was like, I want to quit. I want to stop. I'm using against my will, right? Like I don't want to do this, but I can't not do this. And I said, I think I might have to go to rehab, like not knowing what that meant. And then my siblings, I have two older sisters and a younger brother, they did an intervention. And they showed up at my house, and I am somebody who has struggled with anger my whole life. I'm very explosive. And they like had like this huddle outside of my house where they're like coming up with this plan of what they're gonna do when they come into my house, because I'm like a Tasmanian devil, and once I go off, how are they gonna get me to go to rehab? And instead, they came in and said, "Do you know why we're here?" And I said, "Yep, take me to rehab." And I surrendered. I just said, "I can't do this anymore." And I was in so much pain, and I just wanted the pain to stop. And it was all God, right? Like me being willing, them showing up, and I just went, right, and that's it.
So if you guys are watching this over on Instagram or over on YouTube, you will see that I am in tears. I don't talk about it a ton on my Instagram. I don't talk about it a ton. My clients know, but I have a family member who is an addict, and I feel this to my absolute bones because my family member is also a heroin addict. And again, I don't talk about it not because I'm ashamed, not because I'm ashamed of the person. It's just not my story to tell.
Hmm.
But I will say, very similar situation. I have gone to Al-Anon for years in the beginning. I don't go anymore because I feel like I have enough self-development tools and mindset tools, in my toolkit, but I went for a couple of years. My mom still goes to Al-Anon because she needs it. And it is a absolutely horrific disease. It is a disease of the family. It is so traumatic because it changes everything. And we've been dealing with it for God, I remember, since I was in probably so it's probably been close to 20 years. We've been dealing with it, and this person is doing well right now, but you're always an addict, and unless you're working it, and thank God you decided on your very first time that you were going to go to rehab. Um, but Trese is bang on. And if anyone is listening to this who has some sort of addict in their family, this exact thing. Like, and the thing about it is it's such a shameful thing. No one wants to talk about it. Everyone feels like it's only them. Like, how could this happen? And when you were talking about like, there is no chance in hell you would have ever have thought that it would have happened to you. That was the exact same shit with us. I mean, it
Yeah.
was just like, are you fucking kidding me? There is zero chance in hell. I will bet you any amount of money on the planet this would never happen. And it does. And you don't know why it's going to happen, and you don't know who it's going to be. And I think that a lot of people are going to be listening to this and really putting themselves in the story. So you decided to go to rehab, and something that you said in your intake form, which I really liked, is you went to go get off this specific drug, and you didn't know anything about addiction. So kind of tell us what happened when you went to rehab.
Yeah, so even you saying that too. So my brother went to rehab 5 years before I did. And I didn't know anything about the disease, right? I thought this was a moral deficiency. I just thought that my brother was an asshole and that was why he had to go to rehab, right? Like, and mind you, I was using when my brother went to rehab, but it was very easy to say, but I'm not as bad as him, you know? Um, so yeah, and I think, and you talked about Al-Anon. I do want to touch on that too. As it's very important for people that love addicts or love alcoholics, educate yourself on this disease, right? Because a lot of us
Oh
when
yeah, we knew fucking nothing, like
mm,
nothing. We just thought it was like, yeah, totally. Keep going. This is so important.
yeah, like, and you will make yourself sick trying to make somebody better. And that is why Al-Anon and Nar-Anon exist, because we will make what you end up doing is your sick person, your addict becomes your drug, right? Where this is all that you're focused on, all that you're obsessing on, and it becomes your identity, right? So it's just about learning about this disease, learning that, listen, like I said, we are manipulators, right? And it's just who we are. But here's the thing, right? The things that make us drug addicts, right, also make us really amazing people, right? Like I
100%.
was so resourceful when I was using. I always found ways to get more, right? I can use that today in my life now that I'm clean to be resourceful in my career and figure things out, right? So like it's not like stamp addict, you're this horrible person. It just means I have this disease and I need to be aware of it and I need to be better, right? Like I
Didn't I
need to.
share that Ed Milet podcast with you where he taught where the addict, the former addict was talking about that exact same thing? If we reframe, oh, you're bad, you're an addict, to oh my God, you have these amazing skills and talents to actually fucking be so zoned in on what you want that you can achieve anything.
Yes, you did not share it with me, but
Oh, I
yes,
need to share that with you.
exactly. Exactly. It's just this is just something that manifested inside of us, right? And so, right, are we going to use our powers for good or evil, right? It's pretty
Yeah.
much what it comes up to. And the drugs are the evil, right? Like you're not an evil person because you're a drug addict. It's just that you have a disease, right? So, I was in rehab. I didn't know anything about the disease. They started telling me I was an addict and that, I shouldn't drink or do anything, right? And I was like, no, 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 no. I just picked up an addictive substance. That's all, right? Like I'm not an addict. And then I just had this willingness, right? I just wanted to feel better. So I just knew that this was the only option, right? Like wasn't going to call my family and say, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Come and get me, right? Like I don't think they were going to come and get me. And I just was like, I have to do this. Like I want to get better. I had these dreams for my life and I just wanted to get better. So, they have something called hospitals and institutions where the 12-step programs bring meetings into the rehabs. And I found myself very attracted to this, right? Like these people coming in and they talked about this spiritual awakening. And for me, that was the hooking point where I was like, I feel like I've known my whole life that I was meant for something more. I feel like I had just struggled this whole time feeling like this can't be it, right? Like this can't be what life is. It shouldn't hurt this much. It shouldn't be this miserable. And what I there's an analogy that I like to use where when I before I started using drugs, right? It was like the noise in my head, my brain just going constantly, just like beating me up and just telling me all of these terrible things. And then when I started using drugs, it was silent. So it's like driving in a rainstorm where it's like pouring down rain, the noise on your car, and then you drive under a bridge. And when you drive into that bridge and that dead silence, that's what drugs did for me, was it quieted the noise, right? And what I found was when I was in these meetings with these people who understood me and had been through the things that I had been through and understood that, like, I'm not some junkie living under a bridge that, you would expect this to happen to me, right? Like I came from a nice, loving family. I had all the things provided for me, and I ended up a heroin addict, right? Like I'm not the definition of what I think we thought a heroin addict is, right? And seeing these people come in and talk about the spiritual awakening and talk about how they made their lives better, it just like it lit the fire, right? Like I think that God put it in me already, and then they brought this to me, and it just was like, oh shit, I could have a better life. I could get better. I could work on myself. I could do these things. And no, it wasn't like I heard this stuff and was like, all right, let's do it. Right. Like I still had to fight every part of my being that was like, you don't need this. You don't need to do this. And I remember my mom and my sister came in. They did not know about the disease. My counselor said, talk to them about how I shouldn't drink. I shouldn't do anything, because drinking lowers your inhibitions, right? And once you use the way that I understand it, I'm not, let me just say that I'm not an expert on addiction. All I can tell you is my experience from it. Is the way that it's been explained to me is that once you use, you basically get these like grooves in your brain, and it's like this receptor where that's what my brain wants. It wants to go to this thing that gives it that feeling, right? And that's now heroin for me. So if I drink, I'm not giving my brain what it wants. It really wants the heroin, but now my inhibitions are lower and it's going to say, what you really want is the heroin. So go get that. Right. So, and also, I believe in this spiritual journey that I'm on, and I can't do that if I have anything in my system. I need to be pure headed, keep my body clean. And that's what really sparked everything was that I just started taking care of my health. I started taking care of my mind, body, and soul. And I was like, oh, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this in all ways, right? Like how I take
Did
care of my
you
body,
feel
what I'm
like
eating.
did you feel like you the switch that I am hearing and that like when I was reading your forum and like as much as I know about it, which is not a ton, did you just need to believe that you were worth it though?
Yeah, I get, yeah, honestly, I mean, that's like a huge thing for me is like the worthiness and feeling like I deserve it. And I don't know what it was. I wish if I could bottle it up and give it to other people, I don't know what happened that made me say I'm gonna go for it. I guess it was just like the little bit of a belief of not everybody gets a second chance, and I'm being gifted this second chance at life, right? So either I can grab it by the horns and I can go full into it, or I can always go back to that miserable place that I was in before, right? And I know what that looked like and I know what that felt like, and it didn't feel good to wake up to be me. It didn't feel good to be Treese, right? Like there's always the option. You can always go back to the miserableness, right? And I just looked at it as a second chance, and I wasn't gonna fuck it up, to be honest. Like I just was like, how dare I? You know, like God's giving me this opportunity and I've got to take it.
Yeah. Something that you said though, that the reason why I asked about the worthiness is because you had mentioned in your intake form that, and we've known each other pretty well and I didn't know this, but you just said I didn't feel worthy of being a mom and I didn't feel worthy of being a wife. How did that change?
How did that change? I think once I stripped away the drugs and stripped away all the stories that I told myself about myself, right? Like these things that I collected along the way, about being unlovable, about being unlikable, about all of those things, and doing I'm in a 12-step program, and we say like we'll love you until you love yourself. And that's what it was, right? Like these people they just wanted to help me. They didn't want anything from me. They just saw what getting clean did for their lives and they want to give it to the next person, right? So I saw that, and the longer that I stayed there and realized that people were, yeah, I feel like I had these stories my whole life. Like I have this group of girlfriends that I've had my whole entire life, love them to death. And a part of me kept me separate from them. It made me feel like they all don't really like me. They all don't really love me. I'm not good enough, all of these things. And through just being able to see it with clean eyes, right? And being able to see like, oh, these people really do care, right? Like my sister, she came into that family session, right? And my sister is not very outspoken, like she doesn't like come at you, and she was coming at me, man. And it was like I needed that. I needed her to be like, I'm mad at you and you hurt me. And like for her to say these things to me, for me to be like, she feels like that because she cares. And that's what it was seeing that people liked me for me. And it wasn't because I was the party girl. It wasn't because of the things I was providing. It was learning through the process and learning to like myself, that I had to completely strip everything down. When I got clean, I didn't know who I was, right? Like I couldn't even tell you what things I enjoyed because I don't know. And that was the rebirth, right? Of learning like, oh, I'm really into fitness. Oh, I'm really into personal development. This stuff lights me on fire. I really love hiking and being outside and learning those things, and then seeing people come and doing them with me, and then just how relationships evolve of being there for each other. And that's just like how it happened, is believing that my husband loves me, right? Like that he's not one day just going to be like, just kidding, see you later.
Do you know what's so crazy? So we're talking about obviously drugs and addiction. And you just talked about stripping away to find who you are. So if anyone is listening to this right now and you may not have drugs and you may not have addiction and this may not resonate with you at all, but maybe it resonates with you about stripping away all the stories about who you're supposed to be and all the stripping away all the stories about like what was true and what do you want to be true now. And I think that anyone can put themselves in that. We're always reinventing ourselves. We're always doing these things. And I think at the core of it, it's really loving who you are
Mhm.
and really taking the initiative to find out what you do love. And the more we're love, like if you boil it down to like biblical, like we're all love, right? And if you and I were talking about shit like that's going on in the world before we hit record, and it's like if everyone was just truly in love with themselves and truly in love with what they were doing on this planet, we really wouldn't have any problems.
Yeah. And I think that it comes down to take your ass out of neutral, right? Because that's what it is. Most of us are just going through the motions. You wake up, you get ready, you go to work, da 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 da. And it starts with the process that I think really helped me to start to like and then love myself was like saying, like, does this feel good? Do I like this? Am I just doing this because Christina likes it, or am I doing it because I actually like it? Right. And it's just starting to ask yourself those questions of, even in the job that you're in, what parts of the job do I love? What parts of the job do I not love? What in my relationship do I love? What do I not love? Right. Like it's just actually asking yourself these questions of, am I who I feel like I really am? Or am I who, whenever I'm coaching my clients and it's like, well, isn't that what I should be doing or what I'm supposed to be doing? And I'm like, according to whom? Society, right? Society isn't living your life. You get one shot at this. So if you're doing things because of what society thinks or because that's what you're supposed to be doing or you feel like you should be doing, but it doesn't feel good, then that's not it, right? Like I think life's supposed to feel good. I think that that's what we're supposed to do is find the thing that makes us feel good.
And these are topics of conversation that Teresa and I have on our coaching calls all the time because I'm like, okay, like, why are you doing it then? You fucking hate Instagram. Okay, permission to not fucking do Instagram. But one of the reasons why I love working with you is because you actually are doing the things that you guys want to do. Like, if you want to hire a coach who really, truly wants to help you and really, really wants to make you tune into yourself and give you the tools, Treese is your girl because you're actually doing the things that you say you want people to do. Like your full-time job, Treese is extremely successful in the pool and spa industry. She does the personal development coaching. She does the coaching because she's a fucking obsessed with it and she wants to help other women. And she literally understands that the tools that she has can help another human woman literally have the life that she has. She works out because she loves it. She walks with her daughter because she loves it. She works like she meal preps because she loves it. She spends time with her husband because she fucking loves it. Like everything that Treese does, she is doing because she truly, honest to God, likes it. And like there's times where we get on calls and it's hard. And there's the same thing with me. I still have hard days, but 99% of the shit I'm doing it because I fucking love it. And like most people, Trace, most people aren't. And it's
Mhm.
so sad. And I know that's why you love coaching your clients. I know that's why you love being a coach. You're not doing this for your fucking health. You guys, she doesn't have to do this. It's the same reason with me. I'm like, sometimes I like just want to tell people, I'm like, I'm actually fine. I don't actually have to do this shit. I do this because I'm possessed. Like it's
Mhm.
what we fucking love to do. And now you're really like one thing that you've learned obviously through your journey is like the thing that's helped you the most is a lot of boundaries, figuring out what you like. So like how did you helping other women come about? Because you're not an addiction coach, but obviously you do work a lot with people who like have, stories in this world. I feel like we all do at this point in time, but like how did this come about? Like how did you get so passionate about this?
So, like I said, when I first got clean and I first embarked on the journey, I was like, this is for me. Like, I just really enjoy this stuff. I really enjoy digging things up and seeing, because before it was everybody else's fault, right? Like, it wasn't me, it was you. So, doing my recovery journey, I had to take responsibility for my character defects and how I treat people and things like that. And then I started to notice that complete strangers or even friends would be talking to me and they'd be like, I don't know why I'm telling you this, and they would just start like telling me their deepest, darkest secrets. And it was because they felt safe with me. They didn't feel judged by me and they felt like I could help them. And it just kind of sparked this thing where I was like, so I was in this job. I'm good at running companies. It's something I've learned about myself. I have a lot of ideas. I get how business works. I'm good at running companies. So I was the operations manager for this company. But my boss at the time was, lack of a better term, he was a bit of a narcissist. And he just really kind of beat me down mentally. And I was getting to the point where I was calling my sponsor all the time, crying and being like, this happened and this happened and this happened. And she said to me, you keep on talking about this, but you're not doing anything about it. Right.
Oh,
So
so good. I love your sponsor. We've talked about this. I'm big fan, big fan.
yeah, yeah, shout out Bobby Joe. Um, so, and then also, my first sponsor, Steph, she always told me, share about something until you're sick of hearing yourself share about it, and then you're gonna do something about it, right? So, and that's what it was. It was like that slap in the face where it was like, nobody's coming to save me. Nobody's gonna come in here and slap my boss around and be like, stop treating her like that, like I was the only one that could make it different. And that's when I just started to see things about health coaching. I really got into my health and my fitness, and I really enjoy, learning about how muscles work and certain supplements and what I'm eating and what works for me. I came from, the generation of deprivation, right? Like deprive yourself and don't eat and calories and all of these things. And I went through all of that of being miserable trying to learn how to take care of my body. And now I live in a much more of give my body what it wants and what it needs. And the more that I take care of it, the more it wants good things, right? So that's how I started on the health journey. And then the life coaching thing kind of showed up, right? Like it was like, oh, but I have all of these life experiences and I've lived through some stuff, and my old boyfriend tragically died when I had 2 years clean, and grief is a huge part of my story, and it just completely derailed me, and I was like a shell of a human for a really long time. And again, another trauma, right? And just knowing that like I'm not the only one, right? Like people go through this stuff and they have to learn how to not only survive it but thrive. And then just seeing where I was to where I'm getting, and seeing that I was a constant people pleaser. It's funny because you would not think of me as a people pleaser. I'm somebody that speaks my mind. I'm very much like I'm just like in your face, right? But I constantly was bending and allowing people to treat me badly or not respect my boundaries, or just constantly spreading myself too thin, and I kept on burning out and I kept on getting sick because I was burning out, and I was like, something's got to give. And that's what I really started to learn about. So the type of coaching that I do is I'm a certified transformational coach. And so what that is going back to childhood and finding out where these parts of you developed. Like there's a part of you that became who they are because you needed them, right? Like they needed to protect you, they needed to keep you safe, whatever it is. So we go back to that part and nurture them, right? And find out why they think they exist, and why, what it's preventing you from now, right? Because that's what it is we put on these layers of armor through life, and then you get to a point in your life where you don't really need that stuff anymore, but you don't know how to shed it. So that's what I help women do. And I just love women. I believe in women. Like we are just so strong and so badass. And like, that's why we're the ones that can carry babies, right? Like, that's why we take care of things. And I just feel like we're just so capable, but we also are so in our own ways. And we just kind of let other people steamroll us or keep us pushed down or whatever it is. And I just want to be this voice for women. And I just want to like, I'll hold you up until you learn how to stand on your own, and then set you free to fly, right? Like I just really believe in the power of women, and I'm just here for it. So
Yeah. I love that you say that because I think it's, I've always said I do business and personal. I don't think that you can avoid the two. And it's so funny, all of those traumas and all of those beliefs that you're talking about, you guys, those affect you in business. Those affect you whether you're a man or a woman. The reason why you may be successful is all of the reasons why you still may be struggling. It's
Mhm.
usually the back of the hand thing. And I love the fact that you just said, like, I want to help women. Like at the end of the day, that's just I only work with people who truly want to be doing what they're doing. And Therese is a woman who really loves to help other people because you have been helped. It's the same reason that I feel like I'm so passionate about this is because I am, a 180 of myself 15 years ago. You're a 180 of yourself 7 years ago. And you just want to help people. And it's so disheartening when you can look at friends, you can look at family, you can look at people that you don't even know, and you could just be like, holy fuck, I can see perfectly clear why you are the way that you are. And you have the power to change that. But unfortunately, in our industry, one of the hardest things, and Therese would probably agree with this, it's the person that you can help, and yet they don't, you know, they can't see it, or they don't want to invest in it, or they don't want to take the time or the money or, admit it. And, hopefully we both pray that they'll get to that point. But if you are someone who's listening to this, I mean, Teresa and I have two different backgrounds, but we're telling you the exact same story. We're telling you we have tools that can help you find the joy, find the self-love, find the success when you define it for yourself. And it's possible. And life is, oh gosh, much too short not to do it. Um, what do you want to leave everyone with? Because I just know that we've talked about so many different things, and I love your story, and I thank you for sharing, especially the family stuff. I mean, I know that that's going to resonate with so many people. Your parents aren't bad people, but you have to decide that you're going to take responsibility for the stories, the patterns, the habits. And yeah, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for sharing this. Is there any last little nugget you want to leave everyone with?
I just think it's, you're worth it. Like, you are worth it. You deserve it no matter where you are in your life. If you're still in active addiction, if you're still in the middle of an eating disorder, if you love somebody who's in those things and you just feel like, how could I possibly pay attention to myself or do the work on myself? Like, you are worth it. You deserve it. And I am a huge believer in you will be a better everything when you take the time to invest in yourself and take care of yourself and prioritize yourself. That's when you show up as your best self, and then everybody else benefits.
Including your children. I know I don't have kids, but over the years, that is the one common denominator that I always see is people who have invested in themselves and just become happier, better, more successful versions of themselves always say, holy fuck, I wish I would have known this because this is the number one thing that's going to help my kids.
Yeah, it's funny you just cursed because I listen to your podcast in the morning while I'm driving my 2-year-old to daycare, and I'm like, don't listen to what Christina said.
So funny. I sometimes totally forget that like people listen to this with kids in their car. And like one time, I don't know what it was. I was doing a podcast or something, and like one of the kids walked in the background. She's like, girl, do you not think that I know you cuss? I was like, oh yeah, I guess there you go. Let's be honest, that the worst thing that your kid can do is say a cuss word. I mean, it might go viral on you because I love the little kids that say damn it in their car seats, don't you?
Yes,
Those are
yes.
fucking comedy hour. Oh my God. So funny. Those are the ones on repeat. I'm like, yes, if I had a child, that would be it.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, I am so, so grateful. Teresa, where can everyone find you?
Okay, so I'm on all the socials. So on Instagram, it's Treese's Two Pieces, like the
I
numeral
know.
two. Treese's Two Pieces on Facebook. It's Trese Youngheim, Youngheim. I got married in the last couple of years, so a couple of my accounts are my old name. LinkedIn, it's under Trese Huss, and I'm on TikTok as Treese's to Pieces too.
Awesome. You guys, I will be sure to share every link to Therese in our show notes. I will share this on all the social pieces. Please, please, please. I don't really ask for anything on this podcast. I've never asked for a single dollar. The only thing I ever ask is that you share this episode with one person who may need it. And I know for a fact today's episode needs to be shared, whether it be with someone that you love, maybe it's to be with someone that you know is struggling with addiction, or someone that family member is struggling with addiction. It's just so helpful to hear that we are not alone in this life and that we have the power to decide it's our turn to do something about it. You guys, Therese, be sure to follow her. Go reach out to her. I know that she is taking a couple new clients right now, and I'm just so grateful to get to do this life and business with you, girl.
I'm grateful for you. Thank you
All
so much.